Hello and welcome to Traditional Painting the Digital Way. This is where I use digital painting apps to teach traditional painting techniques. This is part 2 of my Pastel Bird series, and in this video we're going to redo the background. If you watched the first part in this series, you saw that the first part ended with a huge crash and I had lost all my background work. So I'm going to go ahead and show you how to restart and start over with the background and also add some details to the bird. So I'm using ArtRage 6 for Windows, and I did at least have my original sketch left because I had saved that part. But since I didn't like the way the background was going anyway, I wasn't too upset that I lost all that because I wanted to start over anyway. So I'm using one of the shading pencils from the pencil category in ArtRage, and I'm going ahead and using sort of an ultramarine blue color, and then I'm going to use a light pastel to go ahead and darken the edges. And I just want to make kind of a vignette effect around the bird. And the vignette is sort of where you have kind of a rough edges on your painting, and it's kind of in an oval shape. And so here I'm using the Tiny Frost blender again. And if you're following along traditionally, again, you would use either your pan pastels, which are the really loose powder pastels, or you could use the blocks of pastels, and the stick pastels, I guess you would call them, and you can go ahead and sort of rub them along their side and get this color laid down, and then blend them together with a rag or a sponge. And then here again I'm adding a little bit of some light purple because I want to make the gradiated look, and then I'm trying to add the lighter color in the middle. And again, you have to make sure that real color blending is off, and you also have to add another layer, and this is in order to not get that weird green color that keeps popping up because there's yellow and blue together, and that makes green, because the ArtRage program is trying to simulate real world blending. But it doesn't work so well with dry media blending because things like pastel, they will kind of make a green, but you have to really blend them together. So you can get away with just blending a orange or a yellowish color along the edges, and it won't show up with a weird looking green. So you have to kind of play around and figure out how you simulate traditional looking media in ArtRage. And you have to do that with all different digital programs because they're not 100% like a traditional working media. They're close, but they're not 100%. And so here you can see that I'm blending in the oranges and the blues there, and I'm getting the look that I want now because it's not giving me that weird green looking color. And you can just go ahead and use the small frost setting on the palette knife for this, or tiny frost. I think it's tiny frost. There's a couple of settings that are different kinds of frost, and they give you this real grainy look for the pastels, and that's kind of what you want. And I would recommend that you actually try traditional pastels so that you know how they act, and then you can go ahead and make your program look like a traditional pastel. And so here I'm just adding a little bit more of some light violet colors. And some of the brands that I use are Grumbacher or Stabilo. They have some really expensive handmade ones that you can buy too. There's Caran d'Ache has some pastels, and then they have some really cheap pastels. I think Alpha Color. I used to use Alpha Colors, and I'm not sure how pigmented they are, so I'd kind of recommend that if you're worried about light fastness, that you might get some of the more expensive colors. You don't have to get the most expensive ones that there are, but just kind of some of the higher grade type pastels, and check them out. You know, go to their website and see what they say about their light fast ratings. And then here I'm saving the painting, and you just have to save very frequently so that we don't lose our work, which is what happened in the part 1 of this series. So save frequently, and so that's what I'm doing. And then here I'm just kind of blending the light violet in with the orange color. And I don't want to kill all the orange color. I just want sort of a patches of orange and patches of violet. And you can use your cloth to do this, or you can use a blending stomp to try to get the look that we're getting here. And you just kind of want to sort of have a light effect behind the bird is kind of what I wanted to have. Sort of the edges are darkened so that the viewer's eye goes towards the bird. That's what you want that effect to have in your painting, because you want the viewer's eye to go to your bird because it's your main subject here. And so that's what I'm doing, is just kind of blending in a little bit more of the colors and trying to get a little bit more of the shape there. And then I went ahead and was trying to see what some of the light pastel looked like. And you kind of just have to play around with the settings and the pencils and also in the pastels to get your total overall pastel look for your painting. And then I needed to resketch the bird, so I used the soft tip pencil in ArtRage. And if you're doing this traditionally, just take one of your pastel pencils, take a light blue or even the darker blue, and just resketch the bird over the top of your background. And you can layer pastel. It's like charcoals. You can put different layers on there, and that's why you want to pick a paper that kind of has a lot of tooth, and that means it's got sort of a rough surface. So you can pick a thick watercolor type of a paper. And they do have pastel paper. It's a little bit not as thick, but I like to work on watercolor pastel because I work with the layers. And then here I'm just working on his feet, trying to get kind of the shape of his feet as he's holding on to this old fence post here. And I'm using kind of a light gray charcoal just to kind of make indications of where his feet's going to be. This is not going to be, of course, the final details. This is kind of a rough sketch. And then I'm sort of adding in all the colors for the post. And that's one of the things that you can do in pastel is you lay down the color and then you blend. That's how you work with pastels. Unless you want it to just look real sketchy. But if you want it to look a painterly look, then you want to go ahead and lay down the strokes and then blend them in with a blending stomp or a cloth. You can blend with your fingers, but after a while your fingers are going to get sore. So I like to use a blending stomp or the rubber shapers or a cloth or a sponge because my fingers start to hurt after a while. And here I'm adding some light yellow on the bird's underbelly. And again, I got this photo reference from Pixabay, and it said that it was a blue titmouse. And I really liked the pretty colors of it and the markings, and I thought it was a really interesting bird. So here I'm just working on the the colors of the bird here and trying to sketch out the little feathers on the wing and the yellow that's on his belly, and you would add a little bit darker towards the bottom of his belly, and you could use a yellow ochre. And then here I picked one of the pencils that makes it kind of give a grainy look there for the black ring that goes around his head, and then also some of the black markings on his wings and his tail feathers. I'm adding that a little bit and just kind of smudging it in, and you just kind of have to play around with the different pastel settings and see what kind of effects you get. And as long as it gives it kind of a grainy look, like a pastel, then that's exactly what you want. But I found that there's no one tool that gives you exactly what you want, so you kind of have to play around with several different ones. So this is the end of part 2 of my pastel bird series, and at least it didn't crash on us this time. And so if you want to stick around and see what happens in part 3, we're mostly going to just add details to the bird. Well, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. And thanks everybody for watching. Thank you so much for your support. If you have any questions, just leave them in the comments down below, and I will catch you later.